Good morning. Let's fiddle around for a few minutes, waiting for people to wander on in. I can't stay on long today. This will be a short one. Got stuff to do in about half an hour. But while I'm with you, I'm with you. My GoFundMe is doing okay. So I can pay for the ambulance and the doctor and a few other things from my broken hip. The insurance didn't cover everything. Covered a lot, but not everything. And this is a crazy morning. The wind blew my door open a crack. My fault, I could have secured it better. And Tora, my little gimpy kitty, escaped and was outside in the dark for about half an hour before she finally agreed to come inside. That worries me. Her hurt hind foot is still wrapped up all the way up her leg, although she has managed to chew off some of her bandages. That's to be expected. She got the splint off a week ago, but she's still wrapped up kind of like a little mummy kitty. Anyway, Tora went outside and would not come to me, didn't want to come in the house. Wow, Oswald, 25 degrees. At the moment, here in beautiful downtown Crestline, it's 43. I'm sure it was colder overnight, but not 25 degrees, probably in the 30s. I've got a cough and a sore throat. Not COVID. It's most likely from the crazy weather that keeps changing. One day it's 80 degrees and the next day it's 40. And windy. The wind blew all kinds of things around my yard that shouldn't be able to be blown around, but it did. It dumped over my poor little porch swing that I've had for a couple years. I had tied weights to it, basically a grocery bag filled with big rocks and then tied to the legs, and it still blew over. It's cold and a little windy, but not like yesterday. I was thinking that if I were lucky, it might have blown away all the oak leaves that fell in my driveway, but it just piled them up against the fence, along with trash from a mile away, wrappers from candy bars and bags of chips empty chips bags, and empty soda cups all over the place. Well, up here on the mountain, we had gusts up to 90 miles an hour. That's hurricane strength. It's supposed to be more like 10 miles an hour today. I hope So, because I have to go out and clean up the mess that the wind made yesterday. I hope my porch swing didn't break when it dumped over. I don't know how many times I've had to repair the canopy because various things broke it, mostly the wind, sometimes critters. Oh, that poor old thing was barely $100 a couple years ago. It was a present from my sister. Took me 3 days to put it together. The swing part was relatively easy, but the canopy was a real bear. All right, I'll just say good morning to everyone. We've got Oswald and IB Collectibles and Doggerland and Strontium X Nitrate. Cool. Ah, anyway, just in case my sore throat is contagious, I'll isolate myself for a few days. But I don't have a fever, just a cough and a sore throat, so odds are it's the crazy weather and the devil wind. And if Tora thinks she's going to escape to the great outdoors again, she has another think coming. I worry about that cat, and she's very expensive right now. Very expensive. I don't know how she managed to break her foot, but the vet bill was over $700. It would have been half that, I'm sure, if any regular veterinarian had agreed to treat her. But all the ones I called told me I had to go to the emergency animal hospital because they don't do broken bones. One thing, though, one good thing, I know that they treated my little kitty cat very well because of the way she behaved when I got her back. She was actually kind of happy once all the drugs wore off. They had to, give her full anesthesia to put a splint on because it's very painful. And I specifically asked them to give her a shot for pain while she was there. They won't send you home with narcotics for your cat, but she did come home with some um, anti inflammatories to reduce the swelling. It's been 3 weeks now, and she's technically a kitten, just barely a year old, but even so, she'll need a few more weeks to heal completely. She sure gets around well. I tried to get her to come to me, and she kept running away when she escaped to the great outdoors. Meanwhile, I'm making progress on my kitchen, so since they won't let me go live on my phone on YouTube, I'll do some recording, but there's still a ways to go. The main thing is there's no more holes in the floor, there's no more rot in the walls and floor, but the stove has to be replaced. I can light the burners with a match, but the oven doesn't work at all. And I looked into replacing the electronic pilots, but it would cost me more than the stove is worth. So that is not an option. I'm mainly concerned with getting a cabinet that will fit in the odd space at the end of the counter because a lot of my food and kitchen utensils have to sit around in boxes. There's no other place to put them. But I'm managing. I cooked a sort of a fried rice the other day on the stove top. The microwave works, but there's no place to put it, so I think maybe it'll have to sit on the hearth. Since my fireplace is not usable, I might as well use all that brickwork for something. And there is a nearby electrical outlet. COVID cases in my county, San Bernardino County, they went way up. Our death rate is slightly over 2%. Nationwide, it's slightly under 2%. But frankly, that's about the rate for any kind of flu. And COVID is basically a new kind of flu that we've never seen before. I'm not against masking up. I might even take the vaccine, but I'm not terribly worried about COVID. I'm more worried about the way small businesses have been shut down and they're really suffering. Now, in my community, the consumers have stepped up and ordered takeout much more than they usually would. And there are a few places where you can sit outside to eat with social distancing. The problem is, it was cold, and it's going to be cold. This mountain gets winter weather. We get snow. So takeout would be an option, except the roads might be impassable because of snow, and not everybody is willing to chain up their tires to go out and get a takeout meal. Yeah, well, we have over 200,000 dead, probably about 250,000 in the United States. But our population is around 260 million. That is less than 10%, but it seems a bit high. 360 million. Excuse me, my brain isn't working. That seems like, if I did the math, that would seem like two, more than 2%, but the official figure is something like 1.8% mortality rate nationwide. So that seems weird. I think we have around 3 million cases nationwide. Maybe, maybe not. Let's see. COVID cases, United States. Let's see. Okay. We have almost 9 million cases, and we have 226,000 deaths. So let's do a quick thing on the calculator. 226,000 divided by 8.78 million. Okay, that comes out to 25%? That's weird. No, it's 2.5%. Well, that isn't the statistic I got from the CDC, so I'm doing something wrong with my math. The CDC said it was just under 2% mortality. Wow, Denmark is having a over 10% death rate. I can do that one without the calculator. It's bad. In our county, though, the statistics did come out to a little over 2% death rate among confirmed cases. One of the problems is if you die of something else but you have COVID, you count as a COVID death. And the scandal of shoving COVID patients into rest homes, you know, where old people um, and ill people are in crowded conditions, that really skewed the figures. Tom Anderson, welcome. Doggerland, Strontium Oswald, IB Collectibles, and Tom Anderson. I really can't stay long today. I'm supposed to be writing a book, you know. Oh, I did read more of The Shadow of Blooming Grove, a biography of Warren G. Harding, one of our presidents, caught up in the Teapot Dome scandal having to do with oil drilling early in the 20th century, because my husband, Philip K. Dick, had a vision about that book. And when he read the book, he concluded that it was meaningless and the most boring book he had ever read. Well, I'm having sort of a fascination with this story. The shadow referred to in the title is the rumor that the Harding family had a black ancestor. The family never knew for sure whether it was true because the one grandfather who would have known wouldn't say. But Harding was often called the N word, even though he didn't look black. And his cousins and siblings also suffered. Harding doesn't look as lizardy as others. Well, anyway, I don't know. And he grew up in Ohio. And the town of Blooming Grove, Ohio, has strong connections to the Harding family. For a time, Harding worked as a newspaper man. He began sweeping floors and sorting out the type, which in those days was on little individual lead pieces. After they printed an issue of the newspaper, someone had to take all those little pieces with the individual letters and sort them into the proper slots so that they could be used for the next edition of the paper. He became a sort of reporter here and there, and eventually an editor and part owner of a small newspaper in Ohio in the late 1800s. I really don't like the mask, but there are places where you cannot go without one, so I have one. I have a small supply of these things. They hook on your ears and go over your face. I feel like an Old West stagecoach robber. It's kind of cold. Yeah, okay. I'm putting the decimal point in the wrong place, Doggerland. Sorry about that. 700 dead. I read it as 700,000. 700 dead out of 6 million is what, 1%? Sorry. Oh, okay. I'm I'm good at putting the decimal point in the wrong place, but I'm still coming up with the wrong numbers on the US death rate because the latest official statistics said 1.7 blah blah blah, almost 1.8% nationwide in the United States. So slightly less than 2% death rate in the nation. And the one from the county came out to slightly over 2%. Yeah, I think it's slightly under 1%. Yeah, slightly. Oh, come on, you evil thing. Quit popping out of the box. I'm typing away and nothing's happening. Slightly less than 1%. Well, the US has a slightly higher death rate than Denmark then. I think part of it is the nursing home scandal where they shoved COVID patients into crowded conditions with elderly and ill people. And part of it is the way they count a death as COVID. If you get run over by a truck, and this really has happened, but you had your body tests positive for COVID, you're a COVID death. Uh, excuse me? Oh, sorry, Oswald. Evacuations are hell, and especially for an old folks' home. Well, I'm glad they caught the abusers. Yeah, a lot of abuse goes on in rest homes, old folks' homes, skilled nursing facilities, partly because the poorly paid staff don't know what they're doing. They are not trained. And besides, they don't have enough workers to take proper care of people. My mother, the devil's sister, spent a few months working in one of those places, and she was horrified. She was what they call an LVN equivalent, a psychiatric nurse. And she retired from the state hospital in order to collect her pension in a lump sum. And while she was waiting for that lump sum, she worked in a nursing home. And she, for example, found people's dentures, cleaned them up, and put them in their mouths so they could eat real food instead of just having, basically baby food, everything mushed up to nothing. Anyway, I wish she'd treated her own children that well. She really made sure that everything was clean and sunny and airy. She'd actually open a window for a couple hours in the daytime and turn on a light when someone wanted to read. And the less pleasant jobs, like some adult patients needed their diapers changed, she would do it. And not just change the diaper, but actually give them a sponge bath so they'd be clean. Well, anyway, it's it's really sad that yes, it's a killer flu. We have lots of killer flu outbreaks. In 1968, it was like December of 67 to January of 68. We had what we were calling the Asian flu. I think now they call it bird flu or something. Whatever it was, people were dying, and there was no panic. It was just something that happens. Avian flu, yeah, whatever. Let's see. Outbreak 1968. Let's see if Google knows anything. The 1968 flu pandemic resulted in an estimated 1 million to 4 million deaths, far fewer than the 1918 to 19 pandemic, which caused between 25 million and 50 million deaths. Well, that's the Britannica. That's better than Wikipedia. The CDC has something on the 1968 flu. Oh, Hong Kong flu, we called it. Or Mao flu. Killed more than 30,000 individuals in the UK and 100,000 people in the US, with half the deaths among individuals younger than 65 years. It was a Category 2 pandemic, flu pandemic. So I guess it must have been January of 68, but they claim they didn't discover it till September of 68. But I know I was 14 years old, so. Oh, yeah, 68 to 69, not 67 to 68. I'm doing math all wrong today. And that was my major in high school. Hi, Tim. We have a Tim and a Tom. Well, we better trust in God, Tim, because we sure can't trust the government. In a few days, about a week, I think, we get to choose which crook gets to sit in the White House. And a few crooks who get to sit in the Congress. And no matter who wins which election, whether the president or a senator or a representative, no matter who wins, there will be chaos. So I'm planning to shelter in place for a while. I've already gone over the half hour I said I would spend with you. Oh well, I'll be late for a very important date, so I guess I'm a white rabbit. Anyway, it's the flu. It's deadly. And it's happened before. And in 1968, we didn't shut anything down. We didn't wear masks. We didn't panic. 100,000 Americans died. I had a little bit of a cough or runny nose. And for a couple hours one day, I had an upset stomach. I was taking care of all those sick people in my family. Never did so much laundry. You see, that particular flu also attacked the guts. Well, the riots, if I remember, in 68 happened sometime before they discovered the Hong Kong flu. Let's see. 1968. It had to do with, of course, the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Four days in April 1968, after King was shot dead, there were 4 days of riots, but the flu apparently was discovered in September. That doesn't mean the flu wasn't around sooner. Yeah. There was one city, I forget which one, that did not have riots because Bobby Kennedy went and just informally stood on almost a literal soapbox and gave a speech. So we'll probably have 250,000 dead, but okay, our population's about 360 million. U.S. population 1968, we had 200.7 million. So as a percentage, I'd say the Hong Kong flu and the COVID are pretty close in death rate, and nobody panicked in 1968. There were all kinds of protests because in the Northeast, where it gets really cold in the winter, people were having their heat shut off, mostly in tenements where poor people lived. And I'll bet quite a few of them died more from the cold than from the flu. But even so, people were not panicking, and businesses were not shut down. Yeah, we should take the pandemic seriously, but there's a lot of overreaction. And guess what? There's lawsuits happening right now in California because the state and the counties have continued collecting various taxes like the liquor license fees and tourism fees, their taxes on restaurants that were shut down by the government because of the pandemic. And what tourism? And how are you going to serve liquor? And especially the bars are next. They've been shut down entirely. They can't, because you have to serve food and not just liquor under the crazy restrictions for COVID. And some bars started serving food, and the state said, no, the government said, no, that isn't good enough. You are not a restaurant. You have to stay closed. And yet, the government continues to collect taxes and fees on their liquor license and tourism fees and taxes while the bars are completely closed. Yeah, tourism. What tourism? Disneyland is closed. Magic Mountain is closed. Disneyland is open all over the world, but not in California. Oh well. Maybe the Disney Corporation has enough money to fight the government and get them to be more reasonable. And it's really crazy with churches. They can open up with no restrictions to provide counseling, help with food, uh, grants to pay utilities, all kinds, and homeless services, and distribution of food and clothing. But if they dare to say a prayer or open a Bible, that's against the law in the same building because that's a church service and we can't have that. My church has been holding services outside, but as I mentioned earlier, we have real winter here. People are not going to stand outside in the snow, especially not when the snow is still falling. Oh, the Detroit riots were in 67. I wonder. Well, King wasn't shot then. Okay. That was it can't be Chicago 7 because it's in Detroit. There were so many riots in the 60s, I've lost track. Oh, the long hot summer. Okay. Anyway, I remember the Watts riot of 65. In some ways, it was justified, but it turned into a free for all of looting and burning. Well, Doggerland, as long as you aren't cussing, I will allow you to express a political opinion even if I don't agree with it. I'm neither Republican nor Democrat. I'm a no party preference person. And as Dad said, they're all crooks. Politicians. We used to have statesmen. Now we have politicians, and there's a big difference. We had people who had real jobs and went into politics as a service to their country. Now we have people who make politics their career. And I'm really sick of the ones who supposedly represent California. California is no longer the Golden State, it's a mess. Our two real cities, and there are only two that are real cities, Los Angeles and San Francisco, are trash dumps. There's trash and filth everywhere, and so many homeless people, you can't imagine. Yes, we have some homeless here in the mountains and down below, but we don't have a Skid Row. There aren't that many. And the ones who we do have actually get various services, and some actually get into homes and get jobs. I never see these retracted messages. All I see is message retracted. I would never choose to live in a big city. You're divorced from the natural world that's all around us. Well, that's saying something, Tom, if Trump is the most honest man in Washington. In a sense, I might say, yes, he's a crook, but he's our crook. I mean, you don't build hotels and casinos in New York, New Jersey, and Atlantic City without connections. But they're all connected to something. They have to be. You spend millions of dollars to get a job that pays 100,000 a year. How many years would you have to serve in the government to earn back the millions you spent getting elected? Abraham Lincoln went around in a horse and cart standing on stumps and talking to people. Wow, Doggerland. Your old prime minister drove to work in the same bus I drove to school. That was when we still had a people state. Uh-huh. Then there was Governor Jerry Brown. In his first term as governor, refused to live in the governor's mansion, had an old used car that he drove to work. Problem is, that didn't save that. With him not being in the governor's mansion, it didn't save anything because that mansion had to be maintained and staffed anyway. Denmark in the 80s? It was strictly public relations. And we have Jerry Brown to thank for the, let's see, there's a word for it, the brown doggle, the boondoggle, his toy train. He wanted a high speed rail from Los Angeles to San Francisco. If you look at the topography of California, it is not doable. Never mind all the buildings that are in the way. We have earthquake faults, mountains, canyons. Now, he might have tried putting it beside the 5 freeway, which goes up through the Grapevine, also known as the Ridge Route. Actually, the southbound side is the old Ridge Route. The northbound side is the road to the town of Grapevine. And it goes north into Oregon, and I think it goes into Washington state. Yeah, Brown, just for show, when he was governor, lived in an apartment. It was all optics. Anyway, um, this train could never happen. And what the people wanted, the people of this state, what they wanted was a train from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. We'll never get one because California can't tax a casino in Las Vegas. Now, Reagan was governor right before Brown, if I remember correctly. Ronald Reagan, one of our presidents eventually. He began the destruction of the state hospital system, which used to be the best in the world, and Governor Brown finished them off. Now they're just holding tanks for bedridden patients. And one in particular, rather near to me, Patton State Hospital, is for the criminally insane. Well, you take your life in your hands riding a bicycle in California. Either you're in danger from passing cars, or if you're out in the boonies, you just might get attacked by a mountain lion or a bear. it pays to bicycle in groups. Now I'm way past the half hour I set for myself. I'm almost at 1 hour. I'm going to definitely look into Nixon's biography because I think there are many parallels between Nixon and Harding. The Shadow of Blooming Grove. And I think that is really why Phil had a dream or vision about the shadow of Blooming Grove. But it still might have been an oblique reference to the Bohemian Grove, the playground for bored and tired elites, men only. I mean, women were there, but they weren't members and they weren't there to have fun. Enough said. A good old boys club. So I will do more looking into that, but I really need to get going. I don't know what Nixon did. He is known for being a faithful husband and father. Nixon actually worked for the McCarthy Senate hearings. There were many Senate hearings, not just McCarthy's. There were hearings on the mafia and so forth, but Nixon worked side by side with some of the Kennedy brothers. They were all attorneys for various Senate committees. So don't assume that Democrats and Republicans hate each other and never hang out. They do. They don't hate each other, except during a debate or a press conference. They're simply competing for the same perks, money and power. I still think Nixon was railroaded over Watergate. I don't think he planned it, but he did try to cover it up, and that was a mistake. He got some bad advice. There is a rumor going around that Nixon hid a secret set of documents about ET contact, UFOs and space aliens. We'll see if that goes anywhere. But it does remind me of the story that Nixon took Jackie Gleason to an Air Force base where they had UFOs and space aliens. Little gray men. LGM shouldn't be little green men, it should be little gray men. I've never heard that, Tim. Visiting an Oriental woman after his wife died. I have no idea. So, anyway, it will be interesting to look into Nixon's biography. Oh, dark journalist. DJ, I assume that's dark journalist. Yeah, I just can't watch dark journalist for 2 or 3 hours waiting for the big reveal only to be disappointed. But I do listen from time to time. He does good research, but he draws it out for such a long time that I lose focus. Well, when astronomers hear these conspiracy theories and wacky theories about space aliens, they say LGM, little green men. Oh, Catherine Austin Fitts is awesome. She's all just the facts, ma'am. And she can crunch the numbers and follow the trail. Now, Joseph P. Farrell does speculate, but he tells you he's speculating. And he also does good research, good solid research. So does Dark Journalist. I imagine if I were a paid member of Dark Journalist, I'd get a more and better information, but I can't afford to subscribe to everything. If I had the money, I would subscribe to Giza Death Star, Joseph Farrell's site. Oh, well, there really were um, communists infiltrating our government during the McCarthy hearings. The problem was that committee was drawing out and making public information that the I think it was the State Department, but whatever, who was investigating them, wanted to keep it under wraps until they had a good case to press charges. Yeah, Joseph P. Farrell is awesome. So is Fitz. And, I'm not dissing them and I'm not telling you not to listen to Dark Journalist. It's just my personal experience that I can go make dinner and eat it and come back and not miss a whole lot. No, McCarthy was sort of Watergated. He was deliberately given false information in order to embarrass him in public and destroy all the work he had done. Yeah, he ruined people's lives because he had bad information. It was not illegal to be a communist. It was illegal to work in our government and spy for the Soviet Union or for China or any other foreign country. And it's ridiculous. I don't care if an actor is a communist, I care how he or she performs. I don't care what a writer's politics is. If the writing is good, I'll read it. In fact, I read the Communist Manifesto. I had to for a college class. And while I was reading it, I thought, gee, this guy makes a lot of good points. It's too bad that when his ideas were put into practice, it just turned into fascism with an all-powerful dictator and a few elites on top of the struggling masses who couldn't even find enough to eat. But you're supposed to know your enemy. So I might read that Communist Manifesto again just to refresh my memory. Marx was all about the dignity of labor. In both the Soviet Union and China, labor has been the disposable masses. There's no dignity in that. Well, we don't have capitalism, Crichton. Hi, Crichton. We do not have capitalism. We have corporatism, which is simply the modern manifestation of the old royal charter. The government grants de facto monopolies to huge corporations with the means to drive out small competition through government regulation and um, unfair competition, and it's all legal. The only way for a small capitalist to make a living is to become successful enough to sell his operation to a big corporation. Well, strontium, I think you're sweeping with too wide a brush. There are good people, even in Hollywood. Yeah, many of them are just crooks, but not all. I'm really, I've had it. I'm up to here, way off the screen, even with entitled rich kids of any age, even up to their 80s and 90s, are still entitled rich kids who don't understand what it's like to live in the real world. Like the people who bought their kids places in the best universities with bribes and didn't understand that that's wrong. Now, me, I got into college on merit. I didn't have any money. They had to give me a stipend so I could go to school. And I ended up with student loans about, oh, a little over more than 10 years ago. I think around 12 years ago. I refinanced my house in order to pay off the student loans. And then I lost my house in the crash. And because of the way real estate law was back then, when they sold my house for tons more than I owed on it, I didn't see a penny. The law, at least in California, has changed since then, but that's how it was back then. It's called a deficiency clause. You can look it up. Bernays, I don't think that's how you spell Bernays, but I know who you're talking about. He was interested in people's IQs. I got a big IQ. That and $5 will get you a cup of coffee, but not even a latte, just plain coffee. Anyway, I really gotta go. I'm over an hour here. That's more than twice what I was going to do today. But next week I'll have more on Nixon and I keep saying Garfield, it's Harding. And more news about Tora and her hurt leg. Poor kitty. She's getting around well enough to run away from me. She escaped to the great outdoors for about half an hour before she decided to come in because she wanted breakfast. I want her to stay in till she's completely healed and all her bandages are off. Probably one more week, maybe two. Anyway, thank you all for listening. And I'll be back next week, maybe sooner. We'll see. It's been great having you all here. Bye.